Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Chris Bircher, Director of Technical Services here at CTC, and today we are going to highlight a new product that is coming just around the corner called HIVE Family Standards. This being part 2 to our sneak peek series, and last week we did HIVE's project standards. I suggest you go take a look at the YouTube and watch the last week's video. Today we're talking family standards. But before we begin, I want to encourage everyone to ask questions throughout the entirety of the webinar using the questions panel. I will do my best to answer them as I go, and will certainly make time at the very end to answer any and all remaining questions at that time. As always, this is being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel shortly after the presentation has completed, somewhere in the next 24 to 36 hours. With that said, let's begin. So, one of the things that we always strive to do here at CTC is come up with new ideas based off customer feedback and find ways to improve upon the products that we have to make everyone's job a little bit easier and a little bit more efficient. And so we've made a lot of tools to assist with content management and content standards development, distribution, administration. And so this is a continuation on that, and making some of these quality check features available in the HIVE platform. So being able to build out a series of rules and checks, scanning them against your content, and then deciding whether or not that content is good enough to be used or should be disabled and cleaned up after the fact. So today we're going to basically show you how all of that can be done within the new HIVE Family Standards feature set. So today we're going to cover what this new HIVE Standards feature is real quick, and I'll do the shortest recap on what was covered last week. And then today we're going to show you where the standards UI is, family standards specifically, how to get your hands on it, where everything is, how to set up rules, and how to define the checks, and how you would go about scanning your Revit families, and how to review the data once the scans are complete. So we got a fair amount to cover. So before I jump into my demo, I'm gonna just real quick explain what HIVE Standards is. So HIVE Standards consists of 2 modules: Project Standards and Family Standards. Project Standards, which we talked about last week, is the ability to manage what tools are being in Revit, get used either org-wide, project-specific, or based off users and groups. And you have the ability to control and define the rules and configurations within the portal and distribute that amongst your organization. Watch the webinar from last week, and once the tools are released, we'll be doing another one in the coming weeks here. So be on the lookout for the newsletter so you can stay up to speed on when things are coming out. HIVE Family Standards, which is today's topic, is a variation of Family Checker from the BIM Manager Suite, but in the HIVE portal. So if you're familiar with Family Checker, a lot of this is going to be familiar to you and it's going to make sense. If you're not familiar with Family Checker, then obviously this is brand new. But effectively, we're getting the ability to create a series of rules and checks and being able to scan our Revit content in HIVE, getting our reports. So with that said, keep it brief. Now we're just going to jump right into it. So before I show you the standards UI, I want to just familiarize everyone with the family checking process real quick. So in our BIM Manager Suite, our blue tools here, we have a tool called Family Checker. And Family Checker is the basis of family standards. And this is what gives us the ability to all right. My sound went again, apparently, so won't be using those headphones anymore. So Family Checker, I don't know where I cut off, but basically you get all these rules to fill out and to define based off what you care about and what your company standard needs to be. You can then save out a report, and that report then you can do with what you want. It's just an Excel file. I typically bring it into a program like Power BI because it's free and relatively easy to use. If you use something else like Tableau or Domo, or there's a Google Analytics, or there's a half dozen other ones that are pretty good out there that are fairly easy to use. You could bring your Excel files in there and build reports and put together a score based off the ratings that you received, okay? Same concept here with family standards, okay? I'm gonna jump over to the UI right now. So family standards takes all of that and puts it into the HIVE portal, okay? So when this is released, which I said is a couple of weeks away, you'll have, when you log into your CTC portal, if you have HIVE, you will automatically get the standards tab. And within the standards tab, you will see a couple of different new areas here. So we have Revit standards as a whole, and then we'll have our project settings, which goes for the project standards piece. And then we have our family standards down below. So with family standards setup, there's a couple of different areas that you need to focus on, 2 tabs specifically, the family rule set tab and the common standards tab. With family rule set, you have the ability to kind of tailor your experience and what your reports are to look like, or based on these settings here. So do we care about if we're using shared parameters or not in our families? Or do we care if custom parameters are being used, or custom naming conventions, or perimeter grouping, right? If we care about that, we can turn them on, which I care about, so mine are turned on. If you don't care, you click the button, it turns it off, right? This will no longer be scanned or checked within your reports, okay? We have the ability to specify a maximum file size and include that in the rating. If file size isn't an issue for you, or you don't care about file size, disable it. I do,
and I'm going to set mine at 3 megabytes. And if any of my families are greater than 3 megabytes, it's going to get a poor rating, and I'm going to get notified, or I'll be able to see that in my report. And then we have the option for defining subcategories, and if we want to include those in the reports and in our checks. Same thing with reference plane naming standards. Our reference planes being named, that's really kind of the standard at this point. Turn it on if you care about that. Not a lot of users actually name their reference planes, so that might not be something that's valuable to you. Why we give you the toggle. And then here at the bottom, we have a couple of controls for hiding content that doesn't meet a certain rating value. So if you've scanned your families and based off the rules that are there and the scores provided, maybe you set your baseline. So the ratings are 1 through 5, and maybe you don't want families with a 2.0 rating or lower to be made available to your end users, right? If it's a 2.0, potentially it just may not work very well. There may be shared parameters that aren't being used when they should be, or the subcategories aren't defined properly, or it just inherently errored on you when you tried to flex it in the background, and we got a failed number on that. So what we can do is specify what that minimum rating number is, the lowest acceptable value that you're willing to go, and then hide that content. So users won't see that in HIVE anymore. And then you can go back and fix it, improve it, rescan it, make sure it gets a passing grade. And if it does, it'll automatically be made available. So, and you can do that as well with the subscription content. So if you have public libraries that you subscribed to, right? They're all free at this point. So maybe you had the out-of-the-box Imperial Library available. Well, maybe you also want that if it doesn't meet the minimum specifications set by your company or set by you, maybe you don't want those available either. Well, now you can disable that. And anything that just isn't functioning very well isn't going to be present in the library. So we can hide that stuff as well, even though you didn't make it and it doesn't follow your set standard, but maybe it doesn't follow the kind of the baseline content best practices standard either. So you can tailor this to what you need, when you need it, how you need it, save your settings, right? And maybe you just don't care at this point. So you can leave everything at 0, turn off a few things, leave some of these other ones on, save it up. You're good to go. Then you jump to the Common Standards tab. And this is where some of this more org-specific stuff happens. So for example, your shared parameter file. So we need to load up your custom company shared parameter file. So you do that by hitting upload, you go browse to it, find it, then come down here and hit save. Yours will be loaded up, ready to go. Then you can come into, and here's all the other settings that are controlled by Family Checker as well. So the parameter types and parameter grouping, find what you need. So, and these are all the different parameter types that are available in Revit. So maybe you pick a couple of these, like say, oh, let's do length and integer and number, and we'll do slope, not time, text, and volume and yes, no. And maybe all of these parameter types need to be associated with certain parameter groups over here. For example, let's just say I want these under general, just in case, right? So I'm gonna grab general, and then I can grab length and life safety and whatever else you may want. And then you hit the green arrow, it'll add them. And now those options will be made available in those categories, so those parameter groups that you just specified. So this is how you can go ahead and customize it based off what you're using and make it certain things you won't be using at all. So you can either clear it out if you don't want it or just leave it be. I recommend probably just leaving it be because there's no point in spending time on it. It may provide value later on. But if there's anything specific that you need, go ahead and make those changes. We've got all the parameter types based off the discipline that you would use in a Revit family. Keep going down the list here, and you now get the name rules. So what is okay to have in a parameter name? I do a lot of control parameters. So I do CTRL underscore, and those will fall in my other category within family types. I use these all the time. They're locked down by a formula, they're grayed out, but I need it there. It needs to be okay. And then depending on what other standardized kind of naming conventions you guys use, go ahead and put that in here. Maybe you need to include an @ symbol or some brackets. Right? Maybe that's something that's part of your naming standards when it comes to some of your parameters. Put it in there. You know, move it over to the valid section. Anything that you can symbol wise that you wouldn't want, that you would not want in a family name, make sure that's listed here. So things like any mathematical symbol, minus, plus, equals, sometimes the slashes for divide, you're going to want to have in here, percent symbols, you name it, right? Any symbol that would theoretically throw off Revit's formula usage because it's trying to, maybe it's a unit or something like that, right? Throw those in here. Quotes, maybe quotes are a bad thing for you. So it's just a matter of typing in what you need. So I just did a little quotation and then hitting save down here at the bottom. It's going to lock that in. Next time you scan your content with it, it'll apply that to the rule set, to the name check. Lastly, in this list here, we have the ability to define custom subcategories. So if there's a category that you have where you do have something specific within there, like I have one in doors called clearances, and I want to make sure that all my door families have this clearance property available. So I'll come into here and type that in. So what I did was I clicked that little edit button here, that pencil, and now you type in what that custom subcategory is, clearance, you hit add, it's now here, and then you can hit the green arrow to add the doors and clearance to the other side. And if you've used any of these other subcategories within your door families to make sure that, you know, the proper graphics options are made available to the various components within your door family, make sure they're added to the right. So things like the frame, the glass, the hardware, maybe the panel, the swing, get all that stuff added to the right. And you can hold down control, select as many items as you want, and then you select the category, and then you just hit the arrow, or if it's already over there, you select the category to push it over to the right category. And if it's already over here and you forgot to add it, you get an edit button on those categories as well, and you can re-add or add something that you missed or that you forgot to add in the first place. So like with specialty equipment, I mentioned that healthcare reference earlier, right? Maybe that's something I need. I've already added it, so I can just hit the green arrow, add it to the right, and now we have it here. So any of those custom subcategories that you would have used in a Revit family that you can remember doing, define them here, save it, and when you run your next check or your first check, in this case, our HIVE Family Standards app will run that check. So now for the fun part, the actual check. How do you actually check something? what you need to do is, well, basically what you need to do is jump over to your CMS tab. We've got libraries already defined. If you want to scan a library and run it against the family standards settings that you've applied, check the box for that library or libraries. You can do more than one if you would like, and hit the green check mark that appears up here, and it's gonna run, and it's going to scan all the families in whatever libraries you had selected at that moment in time. So if I, just to show you, if I do this, you'll get a message box that pops up that says Revit family standards checking. The Revit content in the selected libraries will be checked for standards compliance. So whatever is associated with this library is gonna be run against any of the and all of the family standards that you had configured and enabled. The entire library. So if this library only has 50 families in it, it's just those 50 families that are being checked. If it has 5,000 families in it, then all 5,000 families are being checked against the standard settings that you've defined. So it could take a while. All right. I'm going to say yes. Let's do it. Hit OK, and it's going to run and it's going to go. And when it's done, you will see that the time will update here and say the last check was done at this time. So that's how right now, that's how you'll know. We're working on setting up additional notifications on this. Oops, I'm in the wrong tab again. Back on the standards tab, we have some settings. You can enable some notifications on when ratings aren't good or when things are complete. So, and those are organization wide. So we can enable some standards notifications for projects and for family standards. So, now, when it's all said and done, I'm not going to sit here and make you wait with me for, 45 minutes for this to finish on the, couple hundred families that I got. You will be able to access the data in a Power BI file, and the way we're making this available currently is through our new API access, the direct API access that Sean has been talking about in the previous webinars. So you'll need to request your API key from us, and we can build a direct link for you guys. It's already there, but we'll give you access. And in addition to, so you'll get access to everything that's in your portal account. So users and groups, things about the CMS and the libraries that you've associated, and what content's in there, how often that content's being used and searched for. If you're using the project analytics, that information will be there as well. And then you have your family standards use. So that's all into your API resource key. Once you have that, you'll get this Power BI file that'll come along for the ride, and you'll be able to link everything up and start to review your organization specific content standards. So we've got a handful of tabs down here at the bottom to show you what the reports did and what your scores are. So I have an average rating, how many families are left to be scanned, right? So I've got effectively 9 that were scanned in this test library here. I still have another basically 7,000 families to scan. So I have a lot of work to do, but not really. It's a whole lot of hurry up and wait kind of thing. So you'll run the scan. This will effectively, you'll just have to hit refresh and it'll update for you automatically. You don't have to worry about downloading any new Excel files and stitching it all back together. With that API key, you'll just have that direct connection. They'll give you counts of how many are doing good or not so good. Give you the 10 worst families in your list, and those all might be ones, depending on what you're scanning for. And because you have access to the Power BI file, and you'll be able to create your own reports. So you can come in here and everything that you would need to build this is listed as individual tables here. So you can do what you want effectively and just keep, if you know how to use Power BI. So there will be a number of different checks here that you can review. And there's one table here that gives you a report of everything that we are checking. So there's the overall rating and the base score, and then what categories of information are being scanned. So detail level usage, element visibility, if there's imported content found in here, does it flex properly, information about connectors for MEP, material usage and application, type catalogs, and the list goes on. So this is only a partial list of what we're actually checking against here. So there's more to add, a lot to look at. And here's another one for custom parameters and parameter grouping and subcategories, and is it approved or not, and do we have naming interferences and the likes. I think that was those are the 4 that are in the Power BI file that you'll have access to. But again, it's direct access. So if you need to make some changes to how it's being reported, or maybe there are certain checks that that aren't valuable to you, we can remove those from the tables. You can adjust your overall ratings to exclude that value from it, therefore probably improving your scores a bit. And make these reports provide value for you, so that you aren't basing it off what we think is important. Make it what's important to you. So yeah, and that's about sums it up. So I hope I was able to excite you a little bit about this. It's super cool. We're really excited about it. We've been working really hard trying to get this input into Hive and making Hive more than just a content management system. Right? Hive is now a suite of products. We have CMS, we now have family standards and project standards, we've got project analytics. So it's really, we're starting to really build this out, and it's becoming quite robust. So with that said, that concludes the presentation for today. I want to thank you all for joining. Love having you guys here. All of you guys have a great, wonderful rest of the day, and we'll see you next week.